whatever happened to our Bo Peep? Yes, Bo Peep. She was my cousin's uncle's brother's daughter. A distant relation, you might say. Oh, a lovely little girl was our Bo Peep. But I might tell you, she'd quite a life. Became something of a celebrity. She even got included in that film, Toy Story. Ah, but I can tell you things about our Bo Peep as what nobody knows. Well, let's say very few know. I can tell you, Bo Peep, the real story. Though it is true to say almost everybody in the English-speaking world knows something about her. But the one thing they don't know is how she got her name. It was comical how it came about. You see, when our Elsie, that's Bo Peep's mother, was expecting her, they told her she was going to have a son. So her and our Albert, that's her husband, decided they were going to call him Alphonse. I can't for the life of me think why. Well, that's what they wanted. Well, when it came to the time for delivery of child, our Elsie was taken into labour ward at local hospital near where they lived. Both Elsie and her husband, Albert, thinking they'd be coming out with what they thought was going to be a son, Alphonse. Anyway, her husband was pacing up and down the corridor outside the labour ward, waiting to be told he had a son, when nurse comes out and says, "Mr. Pickering, you have a lovely baby daughter." "A lovely baby daughter?" says our Albert. "Are you sure?" "Quite sure, Mr. Pickering," replied the nurse. "We have done these things before, you know." So what name am I to write on the baby's record slip?" Well, our Albert were all flummoxed, weren't he? Because you see, it was to be Alphonse, wasn't it? Well, they couldn't call a little louse Alphonse. So he just stood there kind of open-mouthed, looking round about him like... Well, the nurse was getting a bit impatient, wasn't she? "Mr. Pickering, a name?" It was then that our Albert's eye fell upon a painting on the wall. It was a painting of a chap peeping round a tree with a bow in his hand. Well, it must have inspired him, mustn't it? Because he said to the nurse, "Bo Peep." "Bo Peep?" asked the nurse. "Bo Peep," laughed all the other soon-to-be dads waiting there. "Bo Peep," says our Albert again. You see, it was because of this chap that was peeping round the tree with the bow in his hand. And the bow in his hand, isn't it? You know, like in the painting, you get it. He had this bow and it was kind of peeping round the tree. Oh, never mind. So, Bo Peep it was. Mind you, it could have been worse. He could have called a chap tree. Anyway, going home from the hospital, pushing the baby in the pram, of course, don't they get surrounded by a flock of sheep being taken to the market? What's more, several of said sheep popped their heads into the pram. Yeah, and before Albert and his missus could stop them, a couple of them licked Charles' face. It was from that moment our Bo Peep developed a passion for... You've guessed it, haven't you? Yeah, sheep. She was sheep mad. As a toddler, she'd have to have a sheep hat and a sheep coat and sheep shoes. She even had a sheep dummy. The child was totally obsessed by sheep. She drew sheep pictures. She had a dinner off sheep plates and ate with a sheep knife and fork. Well, perhaps that was a bit of an exaggeration. She certainly had a sheep spoon, and Mum bought it in Poundland. She said it was a real bargain. Okay, please yourselves. So, Bo Peep grows up, but the obsession for sheep never leaves her. In fact, she makes it plain to anyone who will listen that when she grows up, she's going to look after sheep. Yes, she's going to be a shepherdess. Well, it's not what you might call the average ambition for young girls, but that's what Bo Peep wanted to do. So, when she left school, her dad took her to see the sheep farmer and asked if she'd be taken on as a sheep minder. Now, as you can very well imagine, this strikes the sheep farmer as somewhat peculiar. Well, he's never come across a girl who wanted to mind sheep before. So he says, well, I'll give her a month's trial. So that was arranged. Well, it turns out she's made for the job. All the sheep seem to like her. What's more, they follow her about everywhere. No, don't go wandering off like they sometimes used to. Well, naturally, the sheep farmer is very pleased and says, the job's hers. Our little Bo Peep is engaged in gainful employment. Well, everything goes all right at first. But one day she looked at her flock and thought, they must be bored just munching about these pastures. So she comes up with a plan. She'll take 'em all for a day out to Blackpool. She reckoned it wouldn't cost much because she'd heard that on the train you could get sheep day returns. Pause for laughter. Well, it is true to say that they weren't too keen on the idea down at the station, but seeing that business was a bit slack, the station master said, all right then, I'll bend the rules a bit. Well, he could have got into trouble, but he thought, might as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb. Oh dear, they're coming thick and fast today. He did thinking about fleecing her, but he thought better of it, and quite right. So they get to Blackpool, don't they? What's more, they prove to be quite a novelty on the beach. Nice change from the donkeys, like. Before long, all the mums and dads were asking Bo Peep if their little ones could have rides on the sheep's backs. And what's more, they said they'd pay her as much as they paid for riding on the donkeys. So that was it. Our little Bo Peep is now doing very nicely for herself, thank you very much. Now, the thing is, the donkey keepers are not too happy about it, are they? In point of fact, they were decidedly miffed about the situation. Our Bo Peep is proving none too popular with the mischief. Well, stands to reason, don't it? She was taking all the business, wasn't she? Thought they were being fleeced? No, I've done that once. So she hatched a cunning plan. They hatched a cunning plan, not Bo Peep. No, they hatched a cunning plan, and they got one of the young donkey lads to go over and chat up our Bo Peep, and he invited her to have a knickerbocker glory with him at Pablo's, saying that the others would look after the sheep. Well, as soon as Bo Peep and lad were out at way, them others bungled all the sheep into 2 trams and sent them on a one-way ticket to Fleetwood. Oh, poor Bo Peep! What a disaster! When she got back from having her knickerbocker glory, there they were, gone. Well, she cried and she cried and she cried, and she cried that much tide was fearful of coming in. She made that much din, people came out to see what was going on. Blackpool Gazette sent a reporter down to take pictures, and BBC sent their outside broadcast unit to interview her. Headlines, isn't it? In Manchester Guardian were, "Little Bo Peep has lost her sheep, and she does not know where to find them." Oh, now I forgot to tell you, one of the crowd who came to see what was doing was Blackpool's celebrated Gypsy Petulengro. She felt sorry for Bo Peep, and she kind of took her on one side and said, "Cry not, little one, for I have seen it in my crystal ball that your sheep are quite safe. So leave them alone, and they will come home." And guess what? 2 days later, hey, they did come home, and somehow they were actually wagging their tails. Yeah, and wagging their tails behind them. Well, they couldn't very well wag them in front now, could they? And what's more, they were also wearing huge grins on their faces. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What they've been up to. Do you get my drift?